And welcome to The Expert and the Idiot. I'm here today with Eric Burke of EB Morelia and obviously the co-host of Morelia Python Radio, which you've been doing since 2011. Is that correct?
Yes, 2011.
That is so bananas. I mean, yeah. What was that even? What was it when you started? I mean, what was the internet then?
Not what it is today. Podcasting was not even close to being anywhere near as easy it is today. Back then it was basically you were doing like a live phone call type of thing using Skype. It's come a long way for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. And also you guys do Carpets and Coffee, which is
Yep. Yeah.
Honestly, I love that show, and I'm so angry that there's not more episodes of it.
Yeah, we're kicking back in on Monday, so we'll be back to it on Monday.
Cool. I just love the rambling, and it goes all over the place. And
oh yeah,
you never know where it's gonna go, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, I didn't know that about that snake. You know?
Right?
And yeah, so that's truly one of my favorites.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But you just got back from Utah, right?
Yes.
What was that like?
So, back in, I guess it was 2018, we decided that we were going to start going herping. Me and Rob Stone are kind of the ones that started this, and it's always been a thing to go to Australia. So, in 2020, I guess, the pandemic, all that stuff happened. Everything was shut down. And we were days away from leaving for Western Australia, and they shut everything down. So we decided, what are we going to do? We still want to do trips. So we've been on this adventure for the past 4 years to where we're trying to see all of the rattlesnakes in the United States. And I am up to 21 out of 30. And I think Rob is at 26 out of 30. And basically this last trip, we went into Utah. We found four of the species that we were looking for. So we ticked all 4, which was amazing. That was really cool. And we hiked into the Grand Canyon and out of the Grand Canyon, which was pretty intense.
Oh my God.
to find the Grand Canyon rattlesnake. Wow. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
That's so awesome.
I think it was 12 hours of hiking total. To find this snake. Yeah, it was pretty intense.
Wow. That's wild. So so how many are you at right now? Or was
21.
Okay. So you're at
21 out of 30. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Are you going to be sad when you hit 30?
No, we'll just move on to a new thing. I think it's not even so much like, well, rattlesnakes are cool for sure. It's one of those species that are, that we have here in the US that's kind of unique to us. Here in North America. And I don't know, I guess after this, we'll have to pick something else to try. And my main thing is to see all the pythons in Australia. That's like my main goal with herping.
I would love to see a python in Australia or just go to Australia at some
point. It's wild because I've said this a million times on NPR, but like, it's like, you're here in the U.S. We see, colubrids, maybe rattlesnakes, depending on where you're at. But it's weird to see a python in the wild because we're just so used to seeing it in a cage or in a deli cup at a show, and to see it just out on the road cruising, it's a very unique thing for python lovers.
Yeah, I wonder what kind of range they have.
As far as what? Which ones? What do you mean?
Like how like how much do they travel in a given night, a carpet python?
That's a good question. I don't think that far. Probably in the breeding season, I would imagine that they're traveling farther. But they're sort of ambush predators. They do move around for sure, and think in Australia, one of the main ways to finding pythons is just road cruising, because they'll come out onto the, onto the road. It's warmer. Yeah. So, but then you also see a lot of hit, snakes, which is kind of a bummer. But the good and the bad, I suppose.
Yeah, my kids, I came home yesterday and my kids are like, there's a dead snake in the road. Let's go look at it. And I'm like, oh, I'm really busy, blah, blah, blah. And it started raining again. And then in the morning, they're like, it's gone now. We'll never know what it is. Without a doubt, something ate it.
Yeah.
So what got you here? When did the obsession start? What got you to this point?
Oh man. I've been into reptiles ever since I was probably 5 years old. Probably a huge influence for me is my dad. He was a big time animal person. Definitely had all kind of animals growing up, from birds to fish to reptiles to, mammals to you name it. We've had it. And I think my first snake, I think my real first snake was like a garter snake, and I was obsessed with this thing. I would stare at it all the time. And then I went to, for people that have read, I think it's in Stolen World, Martin's Aquarium was a local place here in Pennsylvania that sort of had a big reptile selection. And I remember going in there, and they had a Burmese python hatching out of an egg. And I just was obsessed from that point forward. I think I was maybe, 8 or 9 or something like that. And it's probably not good for an 8-year-old to have a Burmese python, but things were different back in the 80s. Wow. And that snake grew up to be 18 feet. And the whole time, me and my dad, we sort of kept various things for a while. He was big time into venomous. We had rattlesnakes and cobras and copperheads and tree vipers and all that kind of stuff. We also had, different types of python, like wild retics and Indian pythons. He had ball pythons. We had tegus, turtles, you name it, we've had it. And I think I hit about maybe 13 and I sort of got into music. So I left my dad with all the reptiles and probably took maybe a 15-year hiatus in reptiles. And didn't really get back into them till about that, because I was really focused on music and playing guitar and bands and on the road and all that kind of stuff. But then when I got back into it, it was a completely different world. I had no idea what a morph was, because to me, it was all, when I was coming up, it was all about just having different species, kind of like having your own zoo, more or less. Mm-hmm. And you had like 1 or 2 examples. There was no talk of breeding. It wasn't anything like that. You were kind of the weirdo if you were into reptiles. Now it's more mainstream for sure. Yeah, it was completely different. I never knew that there was such a thing as a reptile show. I went to a reptile show. I think it was in 2001. They had an maybe it was 2001, 2003, somewhere in there. They had an NARBC out here in Pennsylvania, which they only did twice. But when I went to there, I was like, what is this? Like, this is insane. And I was obsessed with pythons. I had this idea that I wanted to keep all these different pythons, as many species as I could get. And I tried that multiple times, but that is a big undertaking to take on. And for some reason, at some point I was moving and I got a divorce, and I was moving my snakes out, and all the pythons I had at that time kind of were sensitive to temperature changes. But here's these carpet pythons they were just resilient. As long as you gave them a basking spot, they were gold. There was no issues, no problems. So I started to really dive into that world. And I guess at the time it was when ball python morphs were hot and heavy and really coming into, it's like when pie just came out and lessers and stuff like that. And it seemed like that's where everybody was going. I've always been the type of person that wants to go against the norm. So I decided to sort of, dive into carpet pythons. And I don't know, they've been my favorite ever since. I have not had a carpet python since that time, since 2001, something like that.
So when you started getting back into it, and you wanted all these different species, was your goal to breed all these different species, or was it just to keep just a giant eclectic bunch of pythons?
Just at the time, it was just to keep, because I don't know, there was kind of this thing, like I thought, that's too hard to breed. I don't know. It's just that the information wasn't out there. People kind of kept that stuff tight. There wasn't really the internet to where you could jump on, and it's just sort of coming into its thing. And, as soon as you started to see like forums and stuff, then I became a little more confident with that. And I decided that maybe I did want to try to breed. And I think my first time I tried was in 2006. And the first time I was successful was 2008.
How old were you?
In 2008, maybe early 30s.
Hey, I don't feel so bad now. I haven't bred anything yet, and I'm in my early 30s.
There you
go. All right, I still got time. I'm a late bloomer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really get that, because when I kept originally, it was grabbing like one of everything, and then and then I got out of it because I needed all the space I could have for kids. And then they're getting older now, and I have my own office, and I'm like, boy, I could fit a cage in here.
One cage becomes two.
Oh my God. And then 12 and then I picked up a couple things, and then I started thinking, boy, I would like to maybe breed these. I have no idea what I'm doing. And then I found NPR, and you guys had your breeding carpet pythons, the 2-parter.
Right.
And I'm like, I think I could do this. Like I think I could maybe figure this out. And so I totally get where you're coming from with that, where the carpets, they seem like they're just so hardy. And of course, now I'm in Florida, so I don't know about the temperature drops as much. It seems like that's a big thing for them, right?
Yeah, well, it depends on the speed. Like diamonds, you definitely have to have big time temperature drops. I'm getting them down in the winter time, down into the 50s. Probably if you want to do Brettles pythons, that's probably the same, to get down into the 50s. Most of the other ones, I would say maybe 70s, 60s. But as long as they have that hot spot to warm up at, they're pretty resilient when it comes to temperatures. They're pretty good at maintaining and maintaining that temp through the cold, if you will.
Yeah. And so you have a hot spot during the day, and then it's off at night?
Yeah, I don't have any heat at night. I don't know if that's right or wrong. I think my thought process in that is like the sun turns off at night. I think that everything in the world is kind of like very cyclical. So it just makes sense that you're kind of given I guess the way I'm thinking about it is you're kind of given a break to that heat. And, I think about it like with all the herping that I've done in the past 4 or 5 years, you go out into these environments and you're not seeing snakes in the heat of the day. It doesn't matter what species they are. They're gone. They're hiding. They're underground. They're in trees and burrows, and if it's 95 degrees to 100 degrees, you're not going to find anything unless you're flipping stuff. And they really don't come out until, and I guess there's at least the species that I'm dealing with and looking at. With carpet pythons, as soon as the sun goes down, they're coming out, so it just made sense to me that, and it really was shocking. Like before I went to Australia, the thought process for me was, taking them down into the 70s for breeding was kind of like, oh, I don't know. That makes me nervous, And then you go there and you're in the wild and there's these carpet pythons just cruising the road and it's like 69, 70 degrees and they don't have a care in the world. And you're like, wow, I'm really like babying these snakes when they really can take a whole lot more, So I don't know. That's my thought process with turning off the heat at night.
So those temperatures is that during the summer or the winter? like over in Australia when you experienced it?
That would be their spring, summer.
Wow. And it's 69, 70 at night?
Yeah, very humid. The humidity is a thing. Like I used to say a lot that I think that the humidity doesn't matter with carpets. And it's not that I think it matters. I just think that if you want to try to replicate their environment as much as possible, humidity is definitely a part of it, because you're talking about, at least when we were up in Cairns, you're talking 60, 70, 80% humidity.
Wow.
So, which being in Florida, you're kind of used to that. Here on the East Coast, up here, I'm used to that too. As you go out west, it's like 2% humidity. They might struggle with, some of those things that require more humidity.
Yeah, I think my house normally sits around 55, 60, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's where the premise comes from, because like when I first started getting into carpets, a lot of the people that I was interacting with were all on the East Coast. Like Maryland seemed to be a hub for Morelia people, both chondros and carpets. So a lot of the people that I interacted with, they're all from that area, and they didn't really focus on humidity. And it's like those things, like, how you'll hear people say, I don't drop temperatures, but your rooms naturally drop. And you may not be doing anything, but the outside weather affects your room and whatnot. So there's a lot of, I'm sure you heard us call it the cosmic octopus of like, there's so many things at play, and who knows what's important or what's not, You just try your best.
Yeah, I've noticed that it's undeniable. If it's winter, even in Florida, if it's winter and it's 55 degrees outside, or it's 48 degrees, that's going to radiate through the walls, and it's going to be felt, the animals are going to pick up on that.
Yeah, I think the idea of like all the years of doing NPR, the first thing that stood out to me was talking to people from all over the world, was that everybody does it a little bit different, because of that thing where they're keeping the snakes in their house is going to affect how they keep. And this idea that there's like, bake a cake type of recipe to keep a snake. I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me. So it's like trying to explain to people why the thought process is there. And then you can sort of like, what does that snake need? What is it looking for? And then sort of adjusting accordingly. Because what I do here in the East Coast is going to be different than what Rob or Justin or, those guys out West do, because they don't have that humidity that we have here on the East Coast. So things are going to be a little bit different. You got to adapt to it. And, student of the serpent type of thing, where you're paying attention and adjusting as you go,
Yeah. Speaking of student of the serpent, I just started listening to the Timor Python episode again. It's like my third go through with that.
Nice.
It's like, well, it's probably the only thing out there on Timor pythons, And I love how hard you went on it, and you don't even keep them, right?
I've had a love-hate relationship with them for many years. I think I've had them 4 times.
Wow.
And most of the time they end up with Owen. But I don't know. It's so hard. Like when you're trying to balance doing all the podcast stuff and then have a big collection. And for years I had this, 400 plus snakes, and it was just too much. I just couldn't. I wasn't doing it as a full-time job. So it was, and working 60 hours a week and then doing the podcast for at least 20 hours a week. Really kind of took its toll. So something had to give. So I decided to sort of slim down the collection. And, me and Owen joke all the time. You sort of keep certain projects, I like give them to them so they're kind of close, just in case, just in case I get the itch to sort of have a Timor Python again. I know whose door to knock on. But they're beautiful snakes. I mean, when you're talking about one of the prettiest pythons in the world, I mean, that snake's got everything. It's got the patternless tail. It's got the crazy head shields, the pattern at the top, the iridescence. Just beautiful, beautiful python for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to make mine pets.
Yeah, I would much rather be bit than pissed on. So
I know. I feel like you can work on that too, but it's hard. It's hard working on a nervous snake like that. It just it feels, because they're just frantic, and you end up feeling really bad then when you interact with them, unless you can get right in there and scoop them up and get them out, and then they're curious and interacting. That initial, but if they start running from you, you feel terrible, like you're abusing them, where it's like, oh man, you guys are terrified.
Yeah, it's like, I think Rob, I've talked to Rob about this, and he's kept them the same amount of times over and over. And this last pair that Owen now has was probably because of not having a big collection. You can kind of work with them a little more one-on-one type of thing. I think for me, what was happening is because I had such a big collection, it was sort of clean feed water, clean feed water, clean feed water. And there was no like time to really interact with them. And I don't know. I do like breeding. People probably know I don't like selling snakes. It's not I'd rather give a snake away than sell a snake, but, I don't know. It's just not, I don't know. I don't like what comes along with that, if you will. I just don't have time to be, being on the internet all day and like push, you know what I mean? You have to, if you really want to do it and be successful, you have to really put the work into it. I just don't have the time to do that. And I just feel it's not fair to my potential customer, if you would, to not be able to give them the attention that they may need or require, so it's a lot easier if I just say, here, take this snake. There's no guilt on my part, I guess, if you will. But
do you ever feel concerned about where the animal is going too?
Yeah, that especially when I was doing larger type of pythons, that was definitely a concern, like, scrubs, berms, retics, stuff like that. Not everybody is really, most people are not geared to be able to take, maybe not scrubs, but like big retics and berms and African rocks and stuff like that. I don't know. I see sometimes people go to the reptile shows and they're just coming out. We used to call it the Hamburg starter pack, and it would be a Nile crocodile, a retic, the snapping turtle, and just like and there's some type of cobra, and it's just like the worst mix you could possibly get. But
that all sounds so awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah. I mean, if you're able to take care of it, that's one thing. But for somebody that's just get into reptiles, Nile crocodile is not the best choice.
I'm in Florida. I can just let it go.
There you go. Yeah.
So what happened to that first berm you had? Any idea?
The first berm. Well, the very first berm I had.
The very first one.
It was my dad had it until it died. He kept it, I think, maybe 15 years. It got I think the last time we recorded a length on it was like 19 feet.
Wow.
I think it was huge. Puppy dog tame, just a pet. It was cool. There was a time when I remember when I was a kid, I was probably like maybe 12, and he was downstairs feeding, and the way he had it, he had a caiman set up on the bottom where he had like a pool that he kind of like put into this cage, and on top of it was the Burmese python's cage. So he would feed them rabbits. And he threw the rabbit in, and, sure enough, it saw his hand move, nailed his arm. And here I am, this 12-year-old kid trying to get it off of him. And I think, what did I do? Bend its tail. And they let go. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So
your dad sounds like a badass. I mean, that sounds.
Yeah. He was really into reptiles for a while.
What did he do for work, if you don't mind my asking? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
he was a cop. Yeah.
What a character.
Yeah.
None of that
For
makes
sure.
sense. Like a
I know.
cop in the 80s,
Yes, in the city of
And-
Philadelphia.
just keeping tons of reptiles and caiman.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, like the neighborhood kids would always come around and sort of like want to see what, it's like our version of the zoo, I guess, locally. And they would just come in and we'd look at and he made the cages. So they were all like, and again, back then there was no such thing as bioactive or anything like that, but you wanted to make it look like the zoo is kind of like how it would be. So way back then, that's how we were kind of keeping. And then I was really surprised coming back into it when it was like, wait, you keep them in drawers? Like, wait, what?
On pieces
You can
of
do
paper?
that? You can do that? So like, okay, this is what we're doing. All right.
So how many snakes do you have right now? I know you said you had 400, which is just crazy.
I think I probably have maybe somewhere between 70 and 100.
Oh, okay.
Which is still a decent amount, but
yeah.
Right now I'm focusing on keeping the also pythons. Kind of my thing right now is where I'm at. A couple years ago, I think I've kept 5 different species of python over my life, but really the carpet, so I have carpets, lomas, all kinds of Antaresia, water pythons, olive pythons, rough scale pythons. What am I forgetting? Obviously, all the different carpets. I do have one ball python.
Do you really?
one normal ball python. Yeah, it's kind of like a nostalgia thing for me because when I was a kid, I find it weird, like how something is. I realized this, like I was addicted to the chase of reptiles and not like the actual keeping of it, if you know what I mean. Like would be like, okay, I really need to get this, and then I get it, and it's like you kind of like, well, I want something else. Now I really need this, and that becomes the focus. And it's like, well, wait a minute. A couple of months ago, this was the coolest reptile on the planet, and you had to have it, and now you're already moving on to something else. So I try to like keep what I like and not care what other people think. And I get a lot of shit for having just a normal ball python, male, if you will. But
oh wow,
there's just something cool. They're just cool. They're cool looking snake. I wouldn't breed them. I don't have intentions of getting into morphs or anything like that. But that snake just on its own is, the idea of a snake, a python that rolls into a ball is kind of cool. It's kind of unique in
it's like a Pokemon.
many ways. But yeah. But I think they just become so commercialized that it's not that I'm against morphs or into that, like don't like that, anything. And I understand why certain people keep them that way and like are into the morphs because it's kind of like a science experiment almost. You're like into the genetics and you want to see how it works and you want to see how that gene interacts with this gene. And for me, it's more about behavior of an animal other than I'm more into, I think I heard Vince this one time. It's like, I'm not really into the paint job of a car. I want to know how a car works under the hood. And that's kind of how I think of it. I really am fascinated by how these things survive in the wild. They have no legs. They have no arms. They eat with their face. It's just, I don't know. They just amaze me. So.
Yeah. So how many species do you keep now?
Mostly carpets, but I have obviously all the different species of carpets. I have Darwin's, Popwins, Cape York carpets. I got jungles. I got gelatins, Palmersons, coastal carpets, the Russian tiger project I have, the citrus tiger project I have, the poison ivy project, which is like the melanistic Popwin carpet, inlands, Brettles. I feel like I'm forgetting one. Oh, diamonds. There are my diamonds right there. And then like I said, womas. I think it's easier to do the ones I don't have. I don't have blackheads. I have had them, but I don't have them currently. Obviously, I don't have Owen Pellies. I don't have Imbricata. Other than that, I think I probably have, and I don't have Pygmy Bandits. But other than that, I have, children's, spotteds, eastern stems, western stems, Pygmy pythons, and one ball python. So I don't know. What's that? 15, 16 different species, maybe?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Something like that.
You keep them down in your basement? Do you have a basement that is like a reptile room?
I have like it's a split garage, and the one side of it was, when we moved in here, the people that lived here before us, they used it as like a hair salon. So that's where I keep like my main room. And then this would be what I would call the colder room, where I keep it colder in here. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to get a building set up for some more space, or a garage.
It just makes it easier to maintain and stuff. And at some point I was going to expand into the whole garage, and then I said, nah, I better not do that, because I might fill it, and that might not be good.
So no more berms or retics or anything?
No, I moved out of the big snakes. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I just don't have the space for it. Retics to me are one of the prettiest pythons in the world. I mean, just a regular retic is just they're just amazing. Mm-hmm. I really do love berms. They have like that nostalgic, it's kind of like the ball python. It was like ball pythons and berms was kind of like where I started with pythons. And I don't know, there was just, it's so weird, because when I was a kid, the ball python was the rare python. And I remember going to this pet shop that was near me, and they had a ball python that was in like a 50-gallon aquarium. And I would just stare at that. And I would always ask the guy, is that for sale? Where do I get one of those? How do I get one? No, they're super rare, kid. Nobody's got these. Wow. Little did I know.
Yeah.
So it's just funny how different it is.
Yeah. I was just talking to Nick about the ball pythons, and he was saying that there should be like a 6-inch layer of ball pythons covering the earth with the rate that people breed them at. Like if they were cared for properly, they weren't, grown up as fast as possible to breed them and everything. He's like, there should be a ball python in everybody's house.
Yeah. I think it's so true. I think they're a huge part of why the hobby is the way it is, so you have to sort of tip your hat to that kind of idea that, all the technology and everything really came from people wanting to breed, and the morphs, and the idea of even being morphs. Like I said, back in the day, it would be weird to keep something like that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It was sort of more about just the species of what it looked like in the wild. I think I probably moved back to that, because I think when you're keeping something on like, say a basic setup, or like just paper and a water bowl or something like that, you need something to make it pop. So the snake and the colors on the snake is usually what's making it pop. But when you see them in the wild, you start to understand like why they look the way they look, like I think of like, even just by me, like copperheads, and you look at the leaf litter of like, the leaves are like brown and yellow, and it's just like perfectly camouflages. And again, like things like that, just like, wow, that's so cool that's evolved to sort of disappear into the leaf litter, and you wouldn't even know it's there. So when you start to look at that, then you sort of appreciate, I guess, the how it's supposed to look, I guess, if you will. It's not that, not anti-morph or anything like that, because there's really some really crazy looking cool morphs and stuff, but I don't know. It's just looking at it through a different lens, I suppose. Yeah,
I've grown more and more fond of the locality stuff and the way things are supposed to appear out in nature.
Yeah. Herping will do that to you. It really kind of like changes your perspective a bit on keeping and stuff. So, I mean, even if you just go out every once in a while, it's it's an understanding of like what that environment is like for that species. So like, you know, I could reach my hand into an enclosure and sort of say, yeah, that kind of feels like it did in Australia. And even when you are herping, you're only getting this tiny little snapshot of what is going on in that animal's life. You know, you're really not, it's hard to sort of say that this is definitively how it should be, because that could be a night that it just dropped real cold that night, or it got real warm that night, or whatever. And you're sort of basing your info off of that. So to like sort of keep going back and different seasons and different times and different times of day and different places to sort of get a feel for that. But I think once you start to do that, you start to get an understanding of like, I think it makes you a better keeper, I guess, in my opinion. It's made me a better keeper, let's say.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I've initially, when I got back into the hobby, I was watching this, how are we keeping them right videos,
Yes.
you know, that come up, and it's like, okay, I appreciate it, and it's great content, but you went out there one day.
Yes.
And you looked at this animal and you temp gun this animal one day out of 365. Imagine if you went up to a black racer in Florida in November and you're like, well, I guess we got to keep them, you know, mid 70s. That's what they need, you know, all 100%. The time.
Yeah. So you got to have that in the back of your mind that, you know, it's not the be all end all, but you know, at least it's a basis of where you could start, you know, and understanding what the snake's doing at that temperature. You know, is it out? Is it hiding? Is it, you know, what is it doing? So,
yeah. How many times have you been to Australia?
4, and I'm going back in October.
Nice.
Yeah. We've been to Cairns. We were to Brisbane, like Southeast Queensland. We went to, maybe it was only 3. Yeah. And we went to the Northern Territory. So far, the Northern Territory has been my favorite. That place is something else.
What'd you see?
Impelli python, Darwin. We found children's, waters, blackheads.
Oh my God.
We saw, so I think there's 5 species of python there, and the one we missed was the olive python. So hopefully when we go back this time, we'll see an olive python. Saltwater crocs, you know, stuff like that. It's crazy to me how big those things are.
Oh yeah.
And that Steve Irwin was jumping on the backs of those things, like, you know, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Do you keep any lizards?
I did go through a phase recently where I was keeping like dwarf monitors. I still have a Kimberly rock monitor, but I'm going to be trading that. I love them. I love seeing them in the wild, but they just are so much work. And I heard that before I got them, and I sort of didn't understand what that meant. But the more that I worked with them and to do herping trips and stuff like that, it's one thing to leave for a week and you have your snake kind of chilling for the week, but it's a totally different thing when you have all these lizards and stuff if you don't have somebody to come and take care of them. So I kind of moved out of them, but I did have blue tongue skinks, like different Australian geckos. I had ackies and I had the Kims.
What did you think of the blue tongue skinks?
They were cool. They, I think they probably are a great reptile pet for most people. Very personable, pretty easy to keep. No worries there. But definitely different than what I was used to with those tiny little legs and stuff. It kind of like had to grow on me for a bit. Yeah. You know, because they kind of just look weird.
They're trying to become a snake.
Yeah. 100%.
They're like, give me another 500,000 years or so.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, my kids just found a glass lizard just before I got on here with you.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
And I told them, I was like, they will literally split in half. So be careful. You know, their tail is most of their body.
Right.
And he starts wiggling around, and I'm like, all right, just drop the poor guy before he decides to let it go.
Right.
Do you keep any boas?
I have. I've had rosy boas, rainbow boas, different kind of boa constrictors. I had hog islands at a point, but I don't currently. No, I have been tempted by them. I think if I were to get into boas, I think the group that sort of reminds me the most of carpet pythons would be the West Indian boas, the Jamaican boas, the Puerto Rican boas. You know, like they just have such a carpet python vibe to them, I think, in my opinion. I kind of like arboreal snakes for sure, or semi-arboreal, you know. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe one day. We'll see.
Yeah. What about Argentines? Do you like them?
I do. Owen has those. So my strategy has always been, and Owen sort of follows it, is like whatever he gets. So like let's say we have a list and it's like, okay, he wants Argentines. I want Argentines. He wants diamonds. I want diamonds. And he wants Angolans or something like that. So like if he has the Argentines and Angolans, then I'll get the diamonds. So we sort of have it all covered. So we just trade back and forth, and life is good, you know.
Live vicariously through each other.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. It's funny, over all the years, we've kind of like switched roles so many times to where like when we first started, Owen had a real small collection. I had the big collection, and then we sort of slowly over time totally changed. And I mean, he just slays it with all. I don't know how he does it, man. He has so many different species and from so many different places, but somehow he's successful with them. I don't get how he can keep his mind like I don't know. I'm just so focused on a thing. Like, you know, if it's like, I want to master this before I move on to anything else, but he's just like, you know, cave dwellers over here, retics over here, you know, Madagascar hogs here, boas here, you know, wow.
False water cobras,
yeah. You know,
I know.
Carpets.
There's so many times he'll bring something up, and I'm like, oh shit, he has that too.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So no boas right now.
No boas right now. No. Just Australian pythons is really what I have.
Yeah. How many womas do you have?
I just have a pair. Okay. Both are from, one is from Brett Bender, which those lines come from Justin Julander, which I believe it's Python Pete that he had been working with, that line. And then the female I got from Keith McPeak, and that came from like Barry Miller stuff. Really, really nice oranges and beautiful, beautiful. Super underrated python, in my opinion. Really cool looking. Yeah, very unique, you know. So
do they burrow? Is that something that they do a lot?
They do, yes. Yeah. They spend most of I think that's why they're hard to find in the wild. They spend a lot of time down in the burrows of stuff. And, you know, that was one thing that I learned when I was out in, there was a place called Chillago, and it's kind of like out in the deserts of Queensland. And they would have like these caves where you could kind of walk through and see the Aboriginal art and whatnot. But like, it would be like 100 degrees outside the cave. You would go in the cave and it would be like 70 degrees. And it was crazy. It's like, oh, okay. So everything comes in here in the heat of the day and chills out until the sun goes down, and then they come out and sort of do their thing. But I think that's what's going on with womas. And it's interesting. I think maybe it was like 5 years ago. I saw this video of a Woma python that was kept in this enclosure that had the ability to burrow, and it was sort of shoveling the dirt with its neck. And, you know, I was like, what is that doing? Wait a minute. It's making a hole with its, you know, it's burrowing down using it's wild, you know? And I think that's one of the things that like drew me to sort of having a smaller collection and bigger cages, because you get to see those type of things. I think when you're herping, you sort of, you know, if you're lucky, you find the snake, you take some pictures, you see it in this, you know, one spot at this one time, but then you can kind of come home and like, if you have it set up right, you can kind of go into your herp room and just kind of chill and watch what's going on. And especially if you have it like, my room is the lights are on a cycle, the humidity's on a cycle, it's kind of like, has a whole process, and it's neat to watch, it's neat to see some of the behaviors that you wouldn't necessarily see if you're keeping it in a rack. But if you're going to breed, and breeding is your main thing, obviously you want to keep a bunch of snakes in smaller spaces, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. Just for me though, I just, like I said, I like the observation of the animals.
So you think that seeing them out in the wild has changed the way that you've kept all your pythons and everything?
100%, without a doubt. Yeah.
What have been some of the biggest changes?
Space, really providing the correct type of perching for carpet pythons. I think that that's something that I was wrong on for a long time, as far as, it's because I think in the past they used to have this cage, and it was Anthony Caponetto designed it, and it was from animal plastic, and it had like this shelf. And I thought, okay, cool, but I never really had animals that utilized it. So I thought, well, why do they say they're arboreal? They're never up. And it was really my fault not providing the right type of perching for it to do it. And then once you provide the right type of perching, then you start to see them actually never come down from a lot of trees and stuff like that. There's sort of like Amazon tree boas, to where it's like they want multiple points of contact with their coils on the branches. So, and seeing that, we were in botanical gardens with Gavin Bedford, and he was taking us to see some Darwin carpets, and he was telling us about the studies he did, because we were talking about arboreal, how arboreal are carpet pythons, and he said that there was a breeding pair that was in that area, and they never came down out of the trees. They never hit the ground. Like in all his years of studying them, they never left. Everything they could do was up in the tree. So they never came to the ground, which was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. Yeah.
What were they feeding on up there?
Possums.
Okay.
Birds, probably too, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Rats.
So what do you provide now for a perch? Can you walk me through, like, if you're setting up a new cage?
Yeah, so if we're talking like like baby carpets, if you're setting up a baby carpet, I think the way to go is like, those 3D perches, David Brahms has it. I think his is the Reptile perch now, but multiple people have it, but I think they're probably the best, because I think, with a baby setup, you want to kind of keep it simplistic so you can kind of see what's going on. I kind of like the idea that they can thermoregulate across the perch. It's just like when you're using that fencing type of stuff, that's stuff I used in the past too, but it kind of takes up like half of it, and it's over on the hot spot. So they really can't be perched and be away from the heat. For a while, I would notice that when I wasn't using that perching, they would just use the deli cup. I would keep them like a 16-inch deli cup. And then the only other thing I do as far as that is I like to use a paper towel roll. And the same thing, that they can get into the paper towel roll. I think snakes like to be crammed into places, and they can sort of thermoregulate within that paper towel roll too. So they can move to one end if they want the warmth and still be hidden, and then they can move to the other end and be cool if they want. Now, as far as adults, I try to look for like branches that have like multiple. I don't like the single chondro type of style branch, right? I want like, and I know they make some PVC ones too, where it kind of branches out, but like, I don't know. I kind of like the naturalistic look of just straight, stuff you would grab out back and disinfect it and whatnot, and then kind of set it up that way. And I don't know. I just see them use it a whole lot more. Like my diamonds, they never leave their perches. And the cages that I have them in, they're not even that tall. So really, that's another thing that I'm working on this side of the room, where I'm building huge, enclosures for them. So I'm going to have like a tree type of thing in there, to where, like, even if it's, like a fake type of thing, but like, it's just so they can move across the canopy like they would in the wild. Yeah, I sort of look for branches that kind of fork out in all different ways. So
it sounds like herping has totally changed the way that you're keeping. Like you're wanting to just go as big as possible now and give them more of what they would have in nature.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you seen diamonds out in the wild?
No, I'm hoping in October we're flying into Sydney and then we're heading up to the Northern Territory. So hopefully, the couple days that I'm there, we can knock out some diamond pythons, because that would be amazing. Amazing. So.
And even, just the variation in the patterns and everything that you see, like in the more complete carpet python. And there's so much to love about that snake. I hate how expensive they are.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe how expensive they are.
Yeah, they're almost $2,000 a pop now.
Yeah, I think I got mine for like $600.
Oh my God.
But it was a while ago.
Yeah. I think I had a friend that either got a pair or a trio for $1,800, which is like what one goes for now.
Right. Yeah.
Which is so depressing.
I have 1.1 of the reduced pattern diamonds, and then I have a Riverbank Zoo female, and then I have a San Diego Zoo male. So that's kind of what I have right now.
Now, will you breed them in any which direction, or is there a specific way that you have to breed them to not lose your diamond python card?
Well, I think I've done my homework in making sure that, well, let me start by saying this. Number one, I think the idea, I get it. There are lines and bloodlines, and I'm not taking anything away from that. But this debate that everybody has that's not pure and it's kind of old. I guess it's old to me now at this point. It's kind of like, I think it's kind of cocky for us here in the US, for somebody that's never been to Australia, never seen a wild carpet python, diamond python, whatever you want to say, to sort of be the be all end all on what is pure and what is not pure in the United States. We have maybe 5 bloodlines in the US. And it's like, what are you basing that off of? Like, they have to have a certain amount of rosettes or it's not pure. And like, I've been to Australia and seen people's collection of diamonds where it's legit locality, to where if I had that here in the US, they would be saying it's bullshit. So it just kind of like feels, I don't know, elitist to me almost, kind of like, I'm not saying that, you can kind of tell if you have a trained eye, you can tell a diamond cross for sure. Like you can just kind of see it. They have a certain look to them that definitely is there. But I don't know. So again, I've sort of done my homework to know what I have is what we would consider legit. I kind of have a feeling that like when those bloodlines came in and went to zoos, I have a feeling that they're all kind of from the same thing. Like they were just spread out to different zoos, and then they just become a bloodline of this zoo because somebody sent them there, and it's really from the same. It's kind of like the chondro thing, right? It's kind of like, yeah, these are Arus or these are Meraukes, and then you find out that there's no chondros in Merauke, and you're sort of like, oh, that's just the port that they were shipped out of. So they could be anywhere in that southern range. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I don't know. I think the hobby has to be a little more open-minded to that. That being said, obviously you don't want mixed crosses. And I think there is a certain responsibility for the next generation of keepers to sort of do the dill. I can't even say it. My blah blah blah. You would think that I never talked on a podcast before. That you're sort of leaving those bloodlines for the next generations of herpers or carpet pythons or whatever python or whatever type of reptile you're keeping. I think there is a certain. I don't want to downplay the idea of bloodlines and all that, because I do think it's important. I just wish it wasn't so like divisive, I guess. Like, what do you care if they're, I don't know. I don't really care. If that's what you like, then go for it, but just be honest about it, but don't lie about it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old.
Well, it's a good point, and you see it a lot with the jungles too, because there's so many jungles out there, and then you get if it doesn't have lineage, it's a lesser animal because it could be X, Y, or Z, or it could have
Yeah. I see jungle python. I don't see that as much as I used to with jungles. I think we've just accepted the fact that what we're looking for is a neon yellow jet black snake, and you want to try to keep as many questionable animals out of that lineage chart. Right. Yeah. I think the thing, and maybe this was good or bad, but like when we started, like, I know Owen really doesn't do it as much as I was doing it, but like really doing like lineage information and looking back on the history and stuff. It was never really about knowing the stuff is pure. It was just about knowing the history. I just loved the idea of like, wow, this came in 1991. And, it's, if you look at sometimes like Nick, some of his like jungle, I think he just posted up one the other day. It was like 30 years of breeding in this chart. And I mean, that's just a snapshot of jungle carpet python breeding in the US. I think it's amazing to see that history. I think that that's where the Morelia community is probably the absolute best when it comes to that stuff and documenting that stuff. And you talk to some other, like an example would be, you look at retics and they're sort of, the idea of making morphs into a smaller package and all this stuff. Yeah, that's cool. But you're kind of mixing up all those different localities and like you're mixing up the different, subspecies, probably species at some point. And that's all going to be lost. And, it's hard to beat just the normal retic. And then it's sort of like the ball python thing. You see all the, these morphs are crazy and they look amazing, but like, I don't know, sometimes it's cool to see just the normal looking one, like, and give that some love instead of always focusing on, because it just seems to me like the more and more genes you put into the snake, it just becomes like a plain something. It's always patternless with maybe a brown streak down its back. Of some sort,
Isn't
it's
that
like
beautiful.
Yeah, like we
have you seen a normal?
Yeah, it's like we've taken everything out of the snake that's cool just to make it a white, patternless, brown stripe down the back animal. Like, yeah, if that's what you're into, man, go for it. But I kind of like how ball python sort of shifted gears where they went through that phase where they're trying to cram as many genes. Like, oh, this has 7 genes. Oh, this has 8 genes. Oh, this has 9 genes. Oh, I did 10 genes. And it's like, I don't know, it sort of get lost. And now I see, at least from what I'm seeing, I see people more focused on saying, okay, we're going to take these 3 genes and we're going to really refine it into a really awesome looking snake. I think that's a much better approach, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. You see a retic, a wild retic out, in a video, and it's such a sick looking snake.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool looking.
I mean, what's not that? There's so many colors and patterns and the iridescence and the orange eyes and the sometimes the yellow head of some of those ones. Just, oh my God, it's incredible, Yeah. And then you're sort of like, okay, well, that's what? White? Like, or
mottled brown.
Yeah, like what? Okay, I guess. Let me take out all the cool stuff and there you go.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting watching that, and and I love the jungle carpet pythons, and I did get one from Nick, and the lineage on it is just crazy how far it goes back, and it's like, oh wow, this animal's great grandmother was on Reptiles magazine, it was Evergirl. That's so cool.
Right. Yeah.
So the
100%.
history side of it is really neat.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like, and that's really what, like, a lot of people were getting uptight back then because they didn't want to like necessarily do lineage charts for all their animals. But again, like I said, I do stuff on the stuff that I have that has questionable animals, like my citrus tigers that has that animal that's in it that is questionable. And it's like, okay, Yeah, it kind of looks like a coastal jungle type of thing, but they're cool looking snakes. I don't care if nobody else likes them, but every time people come and they see my snakes, that's the snake that they're like, oh shit, what is that?
Yeah.
So
now the jungles, I mean, the variation in them, just going through the more complete carpet python. It's insane. And they're the same as a coastal, right? They're genetically, it's just.
So as the northern coastals. Yeah.
Yeah. The northern coastal.
Oh, well, I guess they're called northern jungles now, I suppose. I guess. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like, yeah, you have the coastal carpets that are kind of down there in Brisbane. And once you start getting above that, you start getting into what kind of looks like this jungle coastal type of, like, it kind of has the pattern of a jungle carpet, but doesn't really necessarily look like a yellow and black. And that's the thing about jungle carpets. Like when you see them in the wild, yeah, you might find a yellow and black one, but they're more like gold and brown black almost. They're not really. And there used to be a lot more variation, in my opinion, in the jungle carpet world, to where, some would be tipped out, some would be striped, some would have a reduced pattern, some would have banding, some would be yellow, some would be gold, some would be like this cream type of color. And you would see a lot of this stuff that people were breeding, and I don't know, it made it more interesting. And now it's sort of become this amazing yellow and black snake, and they all kind of have the same type of look to me anymore, which is not a bad thing, but you can just see how refined they've become, and like they've really done their due diligence in refining the way jungle carpets look. They look amazing, just like stop anybody in their tracks. Like, again, what is that? Type of thing.
And I do appreciate the fact that two of my jungles, one of them is from Mike Curtin.
Okay.
And
great guy.
It's just banding like crazy, just the blackest black, velvet, deep black. And I love that. And then I pick up the one I got from Nick, and she has more of the tipping in the black.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm like, oh, I love that too. It's just like a different, like you can tell yourself, I want really black blacks and really yellow. And that's what I want. And then, like I pick up my one with the tipping. I'm like, oh man, I love that look. That is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of variability and ways you can go. And it just seems that we've kind of like put of all our eggs in that one basket, to where it's all that, like you're saying, neon yellow and jet black, which again is cool. But like, I don't know. I always had this idea of like, why not try to expand on the black and reduce the yellow, and then sort of have like a pinstripe type of looking yellow stripes going, rather than like we always see the black. If somebody could do that, everybody would be blown away by that. Everybody would want that line of jungles.
Yeah. And
because it would just,
you start seeing that pop out every now and then, where you see one that has more black. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that's really cool.
Right. Right. Because it's just different from what you're used to.
Yeah.
Especially like some of the guys in Australia that have like really refined jungle carpets. I'll send you pictures or whatever of some of these things, but they're just, sort of in that vein to where you're like, wait, that's jungle carpet? Holy shit. It's insane.
Yeah. Where they have oranges and browns on them and all sorts of wild stuff that blows my mind.
Right.
It's like a totally different snake.
Yeah. 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 And you'll see, like, we went on the trip where we were in Queensland. You saw a lot of variability. Even I saw the first two carpets I ever saw were from gelatin, and just the variability in those. The one looked like a citrus tiger type of animal, and the other one looked like a popwin carpet type of thing. But oddly enough, the one thing that was consistent with what the animals that we have in captivity, as opposed to what you see out in the wild, they have like these railroad tracks that sort of start behind the neck. It's kind of like ladder looking type of pattern, to where you have a stripe a stripe on the bottom, and then it sort of connects with a straight line, and you start to see it a little bit. But like, I really think that's something that I'm going to try to refine in the gelatins, to where you're making that across the entire snake. I think would be pretty cool, you know?
Yeah, it would be incredible. They're genetically the same as the pop ones, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You're not supposed to cross them, right?
I mean, I guess technically you could, and it would be the same. I think with those type of things, my approach has always been like, what am I going for? Like, am I going for something to sort of make this project better, you know? And then I could see you doing that, but I just don't. I don't get that just I have this snake and I have that snake and I'm going to put them together and breed them. And then what happens is, you know, usually they can't sell the animals. Then they end up wholesaling the animals because they can't sell them because nobody wants the fact that this is kind of crossed. And it's like they get put on a flippers table. And the next thing you know, it's sort of like, yeah, this is just a jungle carpet. And that's where where it becomes very tricky with crossing. And it's like, you can have identified that animal as a cross, but once it's out of your hands, it's out of your control. So I think it's just important that you do your homework. But some of those crosses, man, are some of the coolest looking carpets around. You look at some of those, and I hate the idea that we refer to them as like byproducts of a morph, you know what I mean? Where some of them are just like really stellar animals.
Yeah, it's like the then you see things like carpandros and stuff like that, and you're like, well, that's something else too.
Yeah, I'm not against that. I mean, you do what you want to do. It's not my thing, you know. Yeah. I can appreciate what they look like for sure. I can, like some of them, like I remember going to Bill Stiegel's place and he had a bunch of them, and like there were some of them that you were like, well, that's a really cool green tree python. Nope, that's a carpandro. And it would be like, oh, that could be trouble. And then you look at this other one and it's like, wow, that's an amazing jungle carpet. No, that's a carpandro. And you're like, well, that could be trouble too. You know, like,
jeez. Yeah.
I guess, and I think in the chondro world, they sort of they don't really look down on it as much as they do in the carpet python world, which is why I think sometimes carpet python people get labeled as sort of snobby, or you know what I mean? Like, whereas like they're trying to make this blue, black spotting and like crazy looking chondro, and it's just all these different crosses of different subspecies. And I think that was what sort of the same thing that's going on with carpandros. I think that's sort of what lends itself to those crazy looks, is that it's they're crosses, you know?
Yeah.
So
have you ever, you've kept chondros, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You were big into localities though, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah. I've had Arus, Beox, what else have I had? Marukis, Sarongs, Jaipuras.
Did you breed them?
No, I've had this bad luck streak with green trees, and at one point I'll get back into them again. But I think my problem was hydration. I really had a problem with making sure that they were hydrated. They're not as resilient as carpet pythons. So like when you try to keep them like a carpet python, and like, I don't know, it's a matter of dialing them in, and I think once they're dialed in, they're pretty straightforward, but it's getting them to that point, I think could be tricky, you know? So, but I'll give it a whirl again at some point. Hopefully I'll have some better luck, but
yeah, but you wouldn't be playing with those mutts. You'd be.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not, again, like I'm not against it, but I think that for me, the idea of a green tree python is I want it to be like, to me, the ultimate green tree python would be a green python with a white stripe down the back. Yeah. You know, that to me is like, wow, that's pretty awesome, you know?
Yeah, hell yeah. So, are you ready to jump into a care guide for diamond pythons?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, cool. I'd love to pick your brain about it. Like I said, I want them, and I'd even love keeping them outside, being in Florida. But
Yeah.
I gotta
Crutchfield
wait.
does, right?
Yeah, I gotta wait for the price to come down a little bit.
Right.
So, do you view them as more of a display snake or a pet, something that you can take out and handle?
I mean, I probably look at most of my snakes as a display snake, but I think they're I've never been they've never struck at me. They've always been chill with me. So I would think they would make pretty good pets. The idea of the temperature being a little bit cooler that you would keep them, I think makes them a pretty good pet. But yeah, I would probably say, they would be a good pet snake for sure.
Okay. What do you prefer, substrate or paper?
Substrate. I use a mix of like that cocoa fiber, some sand, a little bit of moss, and some what do you call it? Cypress mulch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you doing kind of like bioactive adjacent? Are you putting springtails and isopods in there?
No, I don't see myself ever going really down that road with them. I think it would probably be very difficult to keep a species that is that big in that. I mean, I'm sure it can be done.
Yeah.
But to me, it's more about the naturalistic more so than the bioactive.
Okay. Do you prefer ambient or gradient temps for them?
Oh, gradients for sure. Yeah. I think you could probably keep them at an ambient, but I think from being their natural history and what it is, I think they're definitely baskers. They're definitely looking to bask and soak up that heat. Mm-hmm. And like my lights will come on and off throughout the day. I kind of keep the UV on all day. As long as they have cover to where they can sort of get away from it, if they would, using like a lot of leaves and stuff to sort of have them to where they can sort of cryptic bask, I guess. But I did use heat panels a lot when I first was keeping them, but I moved to bulbs after that because of the way they bask.
What kind of temperatures are you using for them? Cool side, hot side?
So my ambients are usually, I would say probably maybe 68 to 75, something like that.
Pretty cool.
And the hot spot is probably like high 80s, low 90s.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe like 92.
Do you have that like on a herp stat, or is it just set up on a timer to come on and just give them heat and then it turns back off? Or
yeah, that's what I have. I have like those you can control it from your phone, like the smart plugs and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll have it come on multiple times a day. I have it come up when the sun rises. So like I have a big window in this room at the front, mm-hmm. and I'll open the blind in the morning before the sun will come up. So I kind of like the idea that they get like that dawn type of look. And the interesting thing is that every morning when that happens, they will come out and sit before the light's on. They will sit in that basking spot waiting for that light to turn on.
Really?
And then when it turns on, they sit there for, I don't know, half hour, maybe 40 minutes. And then I'll shut off. And then they sort of like, kind of take cover for a little bit. And then I turn it back on in the afternoon, and they'll come back to that spot at that time, and they'll sort of bask. That one I leave on a little bit longer, and then I turn that off. And then at the same time as the window is open, you sort of get the, as we're going, I can't think of the word, not dawn, dusk. Yeah. And they'll then all the heat goes off at night, and that's probably when it drops down into like the high 60s.
Wow.
And they're out cruising for food. They're
That's
always
wild.
hungry. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you were to keep those, they would be just perfect, like out in the main part of your house. No,
Yeah.
they don't need like a warmer environment or anything.
Nope. Yeah. And then, you set it up with a timer with a light, you're good to go, so.
Okay. Now, if so, let's say I'm getting diamond pythons and I'm asking you these questions.
Right.
Should you cycle their temperatures seasonally, even if you don't plan to breed?
I think so. Yes. I think that's just part of their natural history. I think to have a long-term captive, I think it's probably best that you're going to do that. And also, I think that it's sort of the idea, like a lot of people say that they don't want to breed, but maybe you change your mind a couple years into it. And if you've sort of like established that pattern already, I think you'll have a much easier time breeding them in the long run. I don't think they're hard. I didn't breed them this year because I had a lot of family stuff going on, but I definitely am going to nail it next year or at least try to. But I think they go through the cycle and everything. So it's much easier to sort of like, it's not like I'm changing anything. I think the thing that I learned from Ryan Young is like this idea that like whatever your cycle is, whatever you decide to keep them, however you do it, just don't change it. Just keep it that way, change it seasonally, and just stick to that routine. And eventually you're going to breed the snakes because they want to breed. That's how they're programmed, So
that's reassuring.
Yeah. So just stick to the road. You'll be all right.
So if you do plan to breed, when do you start cycling the temperatures? Because obviously you're gonna have probably a baby in like a little bin, so it might not be as dramatic with that. When would you start cycling temperatures?
So you mean like if I have ones that I'm raising up, will I drop them as well? Yeah, I would. I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do that with all my carpets. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I kind of feel like I think I went a little too much on the side of like sort of going down into them not eating at all, to where I would I've adjusted that a little more and I feed them a little more consistently just to get them to a certain size, like a sub-adult, and then I would really just have them go through the process. But they're going to be kept in this room. The heat goes off at night. They're going to go through that same cycle, whether or not I want them to or not, but that's how I raised all my other. So for the smaller ones, I've always sort of, once they kind of get out of and I probably will do this if I do breed them, I probably will keep them in exoterras with lights and stuff, because you can't see it here, but there's a whole rack of exoterras with baby carpets and stuff in them that I'm utilizing that UV and those hot spots and the basking spots and branches and all kinds of stuff like that. So,
okay. So now, couple questions. UV, are you doing LED or fluorescent? So are the fluorescents giving off some heat?
I'm doing the, I get maybe a little bit, maybe nothing crazy, nothing that, I check the temperatures pretty regularly on the diamonds. And I think the other reason why I cut that heat off at some point, that light, and I leave that UV on, is because I don't want it to get too hot in the cage. So I think maybe when I move to like bigger cages, I could probably leave that on longer because they'll have more opportunity to get away from it, if you will. So, it's surprising how much heat you can get from a bulb that just if you put it closer to the basking spot, but I do find that I definitely, if I was recommending it to somebody, I would definitely make sure that you have the ability to give them a basking spot with a a light of some sort or a lamp, or even if it was like what are they, like those deep heat emitters, but
Yeah, that's what I use.
yeah, like those things. I think they're good too. It doesn't have to be a light, but
Yeah,
that's sort of just what I use. So.
I use them on a dimmer, like on a dimmable fixture.
Okay.
And so the temperature in my house, it drops at night because we want to sleep in a cold house.
Yeah.
So, the basking spot goes down to maybe 80 degrees. And then peak afternoon temperature is up at 88, 92, anywhere in there.
Right.
And then so it kind of has this natural rise and fall, which I'm really happy with.
That's cool.
And I don't have to mess with a herpstat or anything. So I'm happy about that too.
Yeah.
I just have no desire to do that.
Right.
So that's cool. I love hearing the way, people keep. Do you know how many watts that bulb is that you're using off the top of your head?
Maybe 25 watts.
Okay. And that's just like a basking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, what's the timer set up for? How long is it on in the morning and then in the afternoon?
I think so in the morning time, I think it's like maybe 30, 40 minutes, and then I cut it off. And then in the afternoons, probably closer to 40 minutes. Depending on the season, as it gets colder, and we're going into breeding, that will get cut down, quite a bit to where you're sort of, I don't know. That's sort of how I would cycle it. The amount that they're getting, during the summertime, they'll get a little more. During the wintertime, they'll get a little less.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you recommend for humidity? And are you tracking that with like a hygrometer?
I have one of those. Again, I don't know how accurate it is. Well, first I have one of those. I guess it's like a hydrometer it's kind of like what I use for when I'm herping and I take readings. Because that's another thing I like to do when I'm herping is take some data as far as temperatures and humidity and all that kind of stuff. I'll check it in there. As far as humidity, I would say we're probably right now it's maybe high 60s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's pretty humid.
Yeah.
Do you miss them, or is that just your ambient humidity in the house?
No, here's what I kind of sprung. This is something new that I've been messing around with, but I use, so for smaller snakes, I'll start with those. What I do is I take one of those like Chinese takeout container type of things.
Mm-hmm.
I shove it with sphagnum moss in there, cut a hole in the top, and I wet the moss, right? That's nothing new. People have done that forever. But I take one of those black hides, like the plastic hides you get Reptile Basics or something like that, and I put it over top of that. So the snake then has to sort of like, I guess it's like maybe, it gives it some exercise or whatever to sort of find the hole inside that thing. But I think it helps keep that humidity. And the idea of those Chinese takeout containers that I didn't like is that the entire top is usually see-through. And if a snake is trying to hide, it's kind of trying to hide in a dark, cramped place. So if you put the other hide on top of it, I feel like it's trying to keep that humidity in a bit. It gives that snake that more security. And it's been pretty successful with that. Now, trying to recreate that with the adult, they don't make hides that big, but I get those. It's like a black and yellow tote from like Home Depot or Lowe's or something. And I shove the sphagnum moss in there and sort of do the same thing where I'm taking that and wetting that. So if they want to get even more humidity or tuck themselves away, they have that opportunity to sort of do that. And they will spend a lot of time in there for sure.
Okay. So generally you don't mist your substrate or anything like that?
No.
Okay. Yeah, the humid hide, I would imagine would take care of all that.
I would think that if you were probably maybe living out west, you might have to because of just the level of humidity that they have just in where they're from. But out here on the East Coast, if you have high humidity, I don't think you have to worry about it as much.
Okay. How often do you change water?
So this used to be something that I used to be scheduled in to do once a week. Like that's just kind of how I was taught going up. But I think, again, having a smaller collection, I can sort of like, I think this is where I went wrong with chondros. You're doing that once a week water change, and then you're putting them in this heated room. And I think chondros should be kept cooler too. But they're drying out. So I've moved to like maybe 2-3 times a week.
Oh,
depending. Wow. Yeah. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but here's one thing that I've picked up on and I've heard a lot of people say. As soon as you put fresh water in that cage, that snake comes over and drinks.
Mm-hmm.
So if I do that every time and it comes and drinks, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm keeping that snake hydrated. At least I'm giving it the option. It's difficult to do when you have 400 snakes. Yeah. That's just a hard task to do. But when you have 100, that's not that bad.
So you're doing like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, going around changing 100 water bowls out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you clean your bowls? What are you using to sanitize?
So I use I'll use chlorhexidine throughout the week, but at the start of each new week, I kind of toss them. So what I have is sort of like 16-ounce deli cups is like the insert into like one of those crock bowls. Mm-hmm. And I just sort of will, when I've used it, I won't clean it. I'll just toss it and put a new one in.
Okay. That's like the Nick Mutton method, right?
That's where I learned it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, and what are you using to wash your bowls? Do you have 100 sponges? That's a good point.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. He always has that logic that he drops.
He's got 101 hot takes that are all they all make sense.
You're like, damn it. He's right.
So what about a bowl large enough for the animal to soak in?
So probably when I move into bigger enclosures, that'll be a road that I go down. I don't know. I've tried those bigger, I don't know, dish pan type of thing. I've never had them soak. So I never looked at it as something that, out of all the carpets, I think Papuans soak the most. To me, they're the ones that they seem to always be in their water bowl. Mm-hmm. So with them, maybe I would probably spend more time. I'm not saying that I wouldn't do it per se, but I don't know. I've just never seen that behavior. But if I have a big cage, I'll probably move to something bigger, for sure. And then that might be a challenge to clean that out 3 times a week. So I'd have to think through, like, is it going to be something that's like maybe it's a running water feature type of thing, or, something that's on a filter, or, I don't know. But
yeah, it's a tough one logistically.
Yeah. So
got to get the shop back in to vacuum.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So we've kind of already talked about my next question, day-night cycle. You obviously put a lot of thought into that. You obviously think that's pretty important, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think that, I don't know. I'm getting more. I saw this thing one time. I forget where it was. I think it was maybe Reptiles and Research or something, but they were talking about, there was a study done where snakes release certain hormones when they're going into the night, just kind of like human beings do. You're releasing hormones to put you to sleep. You're releasing hormones that wake you up. So if the thought would be that light cycles, I think when people move to racks and stuff, they kind of like, the light cycle of the room, but even that's a light cycle. But the idea of allowing them to have complete darkness I think is kind of important, and also allowing them to have some light to stimulate them as far as that goes. So I don't know. I kind of, and that fluctuates too. I sort of follow, because I'm using the window as the sort of like the sunrises and sunsets. I kind of follow whatever is going on outside.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting enough, on the iPhone, when you're setting up those timers, you can just set it to sunrise and sunset to sort of come on. So it just, you don't even have to think about it anymore. It just automatically adjusts, which is amazing. So you don't have to go and click. You know what I mean? So wherever you're at, whatever you're saying, it's going to look up. Sunset is this time. That's when the light's going to go out.
What switches are you using? Because I need that. And it's doing it with the iPhone? Like it's
yeah. So if you're using like the home app thing, if you go into there and you're setting, you can use it on any plug. It doesn't matter what plug, as long as it's adaptable with, iPhone or a Mac or whatever. But you can go in, and when you're setting up like the turn on and turn off, you can hit, I forget exactly what it says, but it's something about, you go into more or something like that, and then you can set it to come up at sunrise and sunset. So, and that'll adjust, like I said, automatically throughout.
That's a life hack right there.
Yeah. 100%.
So yeah, when you're in the winter months, it makes the days nice and short and everything.
Yep. Wow. And you don't even have to think about it. You just check it on your phone. That's all. Make sure it's working.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then UVB, what do you like about UVB? Why do you use UVB?
It's kind of an experiment type of thing that I'm doing. I don't know. Do snakes need it? Do snakes not need it? That's sort of a debate that goes back and forth. I don't really have it on my other carpets. Not yet. Maybe I will at some point. Like the stuff that's in the other room, I don't have it. But to me, I kind of look at a species that's sort of like their whole natural history is based off of basking in the sun. Mm-hmm. I kind of think that UV probably plays a factor in that. But I'm not sure. I'm not here to say that I'm pro or against, but I'm sort of trying it and it seems to be working. The animals seem to be healthy. They seem to sort of utilize it at times. I don't know. That's to be determined, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, I use it. I don't know. I think I saw something about immune function, and I'm like, well, hey, if it makes them fight a cold better, if they get a little RI and they can kick it.
Sure. Yeah. Again, that's that thing of like being out in nature, and you know how you feel if you're in the sun. I don't know. I feel great when I'm like basking in the sun for 10 minutes or something like that. So I imagine they must be the same. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally just looking into it too much or whatever, but I kind of think that, it sort of works for me. So that's sort of what I go with. So
I appreciate that because I feel the same way. Like if I couldn't feel sun for even a week, could you imagine how depressed you'd be?
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, even just being at work and being under fluorescent lights and, for 3 or 4 hours, I'm like, all right, I got to go outside,
Yeah.
I got to see if the sun is still there.
Yeah. And this species in particular, diamond pythons, are basking out in the sun. So they're wanting to be in the sun, where I don't know, I guess other carpets, I guess they bask, but I think of them as more of like under canopy type of bed, like cryptic baskers type of thing, where they're getting like, they may be getting it from here to there, but like diamond pythons, the great thing about doing NPR is like a lot of people in Australia will send me pictures of their backyard of like diamond pythons just basking in the trees. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this with me, but it's just crazy. They're just chilling out there right in the wild, and the branches just wide open. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah, that's so cool. God, I want to move to Australia when I hear things like that.
Yeah, right. They're just that you don't need them to keep them. They're just in your yard. That's just where they are.
Yeah, I'd be like luring them in. I'd be putting out feeder mice every morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of a bird feeder. Just mouse bodies falling out of a container.
Yeah. Oh man.
All right. So what do you recommend as, let's do like we'll look at this question two different ways. Bare minimum cage size for an adult diamond python, and then ideal. So we could start with bare minimum.
Bare minimum. I would say you could probably get away with like a 4 foot by 2 foot. I think if I were to focus on a bare minimum cage, I would try to get it as tall as possible. So maybe 3 foot tall. I think you're going to be able to utilize basking areas better. I think if you have that if it's like a 12-inch or an 18-inch, I don't know if you're going to be able to do the same things with, I don't know. It's just that the hot spot's going to be too close to the thing. It's going to get too hot. And they're not going to be able to get away from it, but I think you could get away with something like that. 2 by 2 by 3, maybe.
Okay.
If you were to cut it down to 3, I mean, I guess you could, but again, I would focus on getting it taller rather than anything else, because my diamonds never leave the perches. They're always on the perches, ideal. I think my measurements for the one I'm going to build is like maybe, I think it's 7 foot tall.
Whoa.
Maybe 4, was it? No. 8 foot by 4 foot, something like that.
Wow. And
so it's like
are you going to cohab them in there, or like how?
I think I'm going to do sort of the idea that Owen has, where I'm going to have 4 cages kind of going, and I'm going to try to connect the 2 with one of those PVC type of pipe things, and then cap it and then uncap it and let them sort of find each other type of deal. I was thinking about trying to cohab. I still might. I'm not 100% sure. I think you can do it, for sure. Because a lot of mating that you see with diamond pythons in the wild, they're in these mating balls where it's like, 4 or 5 snakes. I don't know if you ever saw that picture of the diamond pythons on the beach where there's like 6 diamond pythons crammed into that rock,
Yeah. Do the males
so they're usually in groups. No, no. Usually the I don't know. Sometimes you'll hear records of it and whatnot because, but usually when the males are smaller in carpet pythons, you're not going to get combat. But I've read this paper where they were talking about combat in snakes, but they were saying that maybe it's not for breeding. Sometimes it's for territory or food, which I thought was interesting. It wasn't on diamond pythons, but it was just on combat in snakes. So,
okay. All right. So have you ever thought about keeping them outside during the summer?
I have thought, I think at one point I probably will build some kind of enclosure that I can move them to outside, even if it's for, the daytime when I'm out in the yard or something like that, to let them sort of get some natural sun type of thing and really get out there and bask. I will say this, when I was at Scott and Ty place in Australia, they keep their diamonds outside and their embrecata outside and their parentes outside. Wow. So I did notice that they feel different. Their scales are harder almost. There's like it's hard to, they feel more like a wild snake than a captive snake. Like captive snakes feel like smooth and silky, whereas these sort of have like sort of a rough type of feel. They still look smooth and silky, but their scales are like tougher almost. I don't.
Wow.
I don't know what that's from. I don't know if that's keeping them outside. I don't know if that's from the sun. I don't know if it's just the UV. I don't know, but I found that interesting that there was a difference. So,
I mean, it makes sense, right? Like if you look at Shoot, look at a human that spends a lot of time outside and one that
Yeah,
doesn't. You know, you look at a
sure.
construction worker or something like that,
Right. Yeah.
beat up by the sun and leathery and, you know.
Right.
You know, especially in Australia, they've got some serious UV going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So,
Right.
but yeah, that's
All right. So big, they need more height, more, you know, maybe utilize the temperature gradient more with the
I think so.
height. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. People have kept them in racks. People have kept them I know people that have kept them at ambient, and they've, you know, it's not that they haven't been super successful with it to where they're going to breed them every year or whatnot, but like they've kept them alive, you know, but I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out as best I can, like trying to push the boundaries of what we know out of what has been the norm, you know, like trying to see, are we keeping, you know, really trying to answer that question, are we keeping them correctly and what's the best way to kind of do it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's awesome that you've got, I mean, you don't have firsthand experience with them specifically, but you know sort of the area that they come from, and you've got these people in Australia that are sending you pictures, and
yeah, that's huge, you know?
Yeah.
Because then you are seeing them all year round. And then I can ask them like, what's the temperature? You know, or like, you know, it just kind of gives you
what is the temperature? I'm curious now. Do you have any ones that come to mind, like outside?
Oh yeah. Of diamond pythons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They shoot, man. They're down in the 40s and 50s, and
wow.
You know, but again, they're getting that basking spot of like, you know, I don't know, 99, 98 degrees, you know.
Yeah.
It's hard to recreate nature in a box for sure. It's very difficult because it's so complex, and like trying to figure out something that's so alien is sort of the fun of it, I guess, you know. It's so alien to us, snakes are, and just trying to figure out what makes them tick. And I'm sort of having fun with that idea of things. But yeah, you'll see them cruising, you know, like I said, anywhere from the 60s to the 80s, and you know, who knows why they're doing what they're doing, you know. But
it seems like they should be like the most forgiving snake.
yeah, I think the only reason that they're not more popular from the early days is that like a lot of people were keeping them like regular carpets, and that's the you know, there used to be this thing called diamond python syndrome, and you know, it was theorized that, you know, what is causing this, and they would become frail and they would die like 5 years in, and it just really came down to how we were keeping them. You know, you're keeping them too hot. You're sort of like speeding up the whole metabolic process, and they're sort of, you know, they're sort of like, it's sort of like burning the candle too fast, so to speak, you know. And they really have to be, they're a really slow and patient snake, because I don't know, 6 years old for a female to breed, 5 years old for a male. And you're, you know, where the typical carpet, I mean, shit, I've bred carpets at 18 months with males, not necessarily something that, you know, I would recommend or be proud of, but again, just trying to see what's what. It's not going to hurt the male. He's either going to breed or he's not going to breed. You know, for a while, the thought was 2.5 years old for a female, but I would probably push that to 3 or 4 years old. And you're doubling that for diamond pythons. So,
wow. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's a patient game.
Yeah.
You know.
So what do you recommend as the ideal food for them? Do you vary their diet? Are you giving them just rodents, or are you giving them some quail or throwing in some chicks or something?
I do vary it. I don't know if that matters or not. I try to get the best quality rodents I can, and for the most part, that's probably their main diet. But when you're looking at them, you're looking at like, so right now we're in the summertime. For me, I'm feeding them big meals as soon as they come out of. I'll feed them a couple small meals to get them going, and then feed them a couple big meals. I've sort of come to this idea that I kind of just don't have, like, sometimes I'll feed them one day and one another day. Sometimes I'll feed them 3 mice, like over 3 days. Sometimes I'll feed them, some 3 chicks. Sometimes I'll do it. And I'll go 2 weeks without feeding them, and then I'll feed them something big. I don't know if that matters. It may not make a difference, but I kind of look at it as trying to vary not only because I think about in the wild, right? That snake is going to take a meal when it can. And if they got 3 rats running in front of them, they're going to try to nail all 3 rats and try to eat them all at once. It's not like every Saturday they go down to the, to the tree. Oh, let's pick up a rat and, go back up into the tree. We're good for a week. And next Saturday I'll come down. So I don't know. Again, it may be too nerdy what I'm doing. It may be too crazy. People that are probably trying to breed and maybe do it a different way. Probably you could probably get away with. I mean, I know some people, they feed their diamonds like maybe 6 to 8 times a year.
Wow. What?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So yeah, trying to find that balance of like not overfeeding, but not underfeeding is kind of, so I think like cycle feeding, because their system, when they're not eating for an extended period of time, their system sort of shuts down. So they're not focusing on using, calories to keep, their stomachs and all that to sort of shrink down. And then when they're going to eat, it comes back up. So like you want to sort of take advantage as best you can when you're doing that, to try to feed them, a few different meals while they're doing that, so that you're sort of getting. I don't know if that hurts the snake or doesn't, but I'm trying to take advantage of like that system and how it is. Like, I think it's stressful on them to go up and down and up and down and up and down. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Like, so maybe like, get them in that system, feed them for a while, and then let them take a break, and then feed, and then, kind of do it that way. So.
Okay. So how often do you feed? Let's say you had some baby diamonds,
right?
So we're next year. How often are you feeding baby diamonds?
I think it would probably go with my other carpets, like every 2 weeks.
Okay.
I kind of do follow schedule with babies. I think getting them established, and once their metabolism kicks in, you sort of want to like kind of keep the food rolling to them till they get some size. But like usually by the time we would get to winter time and they would chill down anyway, I might probably do smaller meals if I was going to feed them. I probably maybe once every 3 weeks in the winter. And then sometimes I eyeball it. Sometimes if the snake looks pretty solid, I'll just kind of let it go, and then, if it's looking a little like, oh, is it losing weight? I find that they gain weight. You're not even feeding them. I don't know. I don't know how that happens, but
yeah, it is weird with the young ones.
Yeah.
So when do you start doing the cycling like you were just talking about? Is that at 2 to 3 or 3 to 5 years old?
Probably maybe, or I think if I were to do it, I would probably do it the same. I would do it that first season going in. I would start to cycle them lower. And I guess, with the diamonds that I've raised, like I said, I've keep the smaller ones. I've kept them in exoterras, and that seems to be great. It seems to work out well. And I don't know. Sometimes I'll go 4 weeks without feeding them, and then I'll feed. I kind of, it's kind of like there's no set schedule to it. I just kind of am looking at them and seeing where they're at, and seeing, oh yeah, it's time to feed them. And another thing that I'll notice, especially with keeping the babies in the exoterras, like you can kind of they go into that pose, that chondro pose, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe it's time to give them something. Mm-hmm. So they kind of let you know, and then they don't come out of that pose for like. A couple weeks. They'll be there every night in that pose. Like, okay, there was one. Where's the next one? So that's sort of like where I came to the idea of like, well, maybe feed them 3 nights in a row, and then don't feed them for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
and then feed, like that kind of thinking. So
now, what do you do? Have you ever had any go off food?
no. When I first got into carpets, one of the big things was let me back that up. Males typically will go off food if they're at breeding age, because you'll see them just, the only thing that they're worried about is they're just doing around their cage. Like, I smell the females. Where are they? I'm trying to get out of here to find them, type of deal. Then you're probably not going to get them to eat. So I think that's like for a newbie carpet python person or diamond python person that would be dealing with them. I think one of the things that happens is, like, if you're getting advice that you're going to feed them every week, and then all of a sudden they're going off feed. It's like, oh no, what am I going to do? My carpet's not eating. And I'm sure you've seen those posts, but yeah, they'll just go off food come breeding time, and you really won't. When I've had them as low as 50, high 40s, low 50s, they even still come out. We're looking for a meal,
Wow.
which is crazy to me, because it's like, damn, they still want food. I probably see that more at the beginning. I usually follow the weather outside. So probably like November is when I start to do that. I'll let them empty out. I think the easiest way to think about it is, I've said this on NPR before, but to kind of follow the holidays. Halloween, I start to stop feeding them and start to let them sort of empty out and get their systems in check. And maybe Thanksgiving, and that's when I'll start to drop the temperatures, and then slowly dropping the temperatures, changing the length of time of their basking spot, and kind of going through that through Christmas, and then maybe Valentine's Day, maybe at the beginning of March, depending on what the weather is doing. I'll start to slowly bring them up. And then once they're up, then it's just a matter of starting to get them feeding. And then my approach has been, and I've seen locks and whatnot, but I've just, because of family stuff that's been going on, I sort of haven't been able to be there when I was supposed to be there. And I sort of think I missed the window, but I would put them together after that, and then sort of just see what we're getting breeding wise. I think that you don't want to put them together. I was told that you don't want to put them together too early, because then they might give you slugs. So it's kind of really getting them going. I think we were talking about slugs the other day. Is it the males? Is it the females on NPR? And it was sort of, does El Nino play into that type of thing? Does the weather outside affect that? It seems like I've seen a lot of slugs this year in pythons. And I wonder, I'm just curious to what people's thoughts are, why that's happening. But I think with diamonds, you want to, you want to make sure that they're eating, but at the same time, I think that tells the female that food is abundant, so I can start to put some energy into producing these follicles. And then, hopefully you get baby snakes after that. But, and then feeding that female up after she comes out and keeping that going through the summer. So I'll feed them right now at the beginning of the summer. I kind of feed them heavy. And then as we get to the end of the summer, I'll start to back off and slow down until we get into that November, October timeframe, to where I'll just go off food. So I don't feed any of my carpets of any type from November to February.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's adults.
Adults, yeah.
Yeah, the babies are still, you said every 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes 4, sometimes 3, sometimes 2. Right? It just sort of depends on what I'm saying. But yeah, that's sort of my approach. And that's why people say they only eat 6 meals, because you're only feeding them in that window, if you think about it,
And does that
6 months?
Does that lead to a healthier snake long term?
I think so. I don't really have any proof to back that up, but I think so. I think when you see some of these snakes in the wild, you start to understand that how. I think Nick said this a lot, but I think the idea of like the interaction that you're having with your snake is usually when you're feeding it. You know, when I was a kid, that was the most exciting thing. This like, oh my God, it's going to eat a mouse. You know, everybody wants to be around the cage and watch it. Oh, look what is it, you know? And so I think it just became the way to interact with a snake. And unfortunately, I think that also led to having a lot of unhealthy snakes in the hobby. It's like these fat snakes with no necks and like, you know,
Yeah. You see those carpets on social media every day.
Yeah, like the pet carpets, man. Like have no neck. It's just a solid. It looks like a king snake almost.
Yeah, it's Chris Farley the snake.
Yeah, 100%.
I just got Chris Farley on the brain because the Nino.
There you go.
Because we felt that pretty hard down here in Florida. It was a wet, kind of warm winter. So
yeah,
it was a weird season.
I would imagine that has to affect them somewhat. No, I mean, I don't know. It has to.
It's got to.
I think, I don't know. Jury's still out on that. I don't know. Maybe talk to me in 10 years. I could be full of shit, or maybe I'm on to something. But
yeah, I guess we'll have to go through some more El Ninos and really.
I just noticed like one of the things I was talking about, like when I first was introduced to Nick Mutton, I heard him talking on, this is an old school podcast called Reptile Radio. And he was talking about in 2009, what a shitty season that he had. And it seemed like everybody that was on the West Coast had a shitty season. Everybody that was on the East Coast had a really good season. And it just so happened to be El Nino. And whenever I hear El Ninos coming around, I sort of pay attention to see like what's going on with people's clutches. And like, I don't know, it just seems that a lot of people have infertility issues, or the ones didn't go, or that's a smaller clutch, or, you know, I don't know. It's out of the norm to what I'm seeing. And like I said, it could just be all anecdotal and bullshit, or it could be something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there's something to it.
Yeah,
for sure. So any potential health problems that are common with diamond pythons?
I mean, other than, knock on wood, I've never had any type of respiratory infections with them or anything, which is kind of wild when you think about the temperatures that you're keeping them at. I would definitely not want it to be super wet at that temperature for sure. And I think as long as you're giving them that basking opportunity to be good. I'm trying to think what else. I haven't seen like in some carpets, you'll see cancer pop up. Mm-hmm. You'll see enlarged hearts with some lines and stuff, but I haven't seen that in the diamonds. And I think the only real issue that has really been in diamonds, other than the normal Nido type of thing, you know, that's been going around, but I think that's been there forever. I think we're just understanding it now because we can sort of test it and verify what it is, you know? Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I've out of all the carpets, like I've had weird things happen with other coastals and jungles and stuff like that, but nothing with the diamonds so far. Knock on wood.
Yeah, they seem like they're just really, really hardy.
Yeah, I think if you keep on, I think it's similar to chondros, right? I think a lot of people are scared to keep them because they're different than what a normal carpet is. But I think once you get them dialed in and you understand what's going on, I think they're pretty much, you know, you can keep them in your basement. You can keep them in a nice display in your living room, like you were saying earlier. It's like they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine, you know. Keep them outside in Florida, you know, they're going to be good.
Try that so bad.
Yeah, they're going to be good, man. Yeah.
My concern with keeping them outside in Florida here is that it would be too hot, you know, because it's been 95, 97 every day.
Yeah, I would think that you would have. I think, doesn't Tom Crutchfield have like he keeps like a big hide box that's sort of like temperature controlled to where they can kind of get away?
Yeah, I need to pick his brain on that.
Yeah.
I think Dave Palumbo keeps some diamonds outside too.
Oh, does he? Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go.
I saw a YouTube video where he moved some out there, so I want to get him on and pick his brain about that because that seems pretty Interesting.
Yeah, that would be real cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps up the diamond python care sheet. Thank you for doing that and setting some time aside for that.
Absolutely.
And real quick, what's your favorite snake of all time?
Whew.
It doesn't have to be something you can or have kept. It could be anything. It has to be alive though. It can't be extinct.
I would say I'm probably going to have to go Morelia imbricata southwestern carpet python. I'm obsessed with them. And I don't know if it's because we don't have them. I don't know if it's because of the variability in them. I don't know if it's because there's not a lot of people that talk about them, but I am obsessed with that species. Yeah.
Cool.
Imbricata. Yep.
It's cool because you can't have it.
Yeah. I hope it's not one of those things. Once you get it, you're like, oh yeah, they're cool. Whatever.
Yeah. What was I
What's
waiting
next?
for? I know that's got to be the hardest thing is immediately getting on Morph Market and looking for another snake after you going out from FedEx.
Yes, I've found a way to transition that addiction into something that's positive, and I do it with books. So as soon as I get a book, I'm like, I got to read this book. And then it's like, I read a couple pages and it's just like, okay, I need this book. And you know,
What are you reading right now?
Actually, I'm reading. So I was reading the Rattlesnakes of the U.S. was one, the Snake of the Grand Canyon. And I think the other one that I had was, there's a book called Boas of the West Indies. That's why I was sort of saying that boas are sort of a lot like carpets. I've sort of been dabbling into that. So
is it? Are you doing exclusively snake books, or are you reading other things too?
I think, well, yeah, it's mostly snake books. I do like to try to read a book that's sort of like a scientific type of book. I like to read like a hobby type of book. And then I like to read like people that talk about their adventures with finding snakes in the wild or reptiles. Like Rob just gave me a book called The Python Hunters of Borneo or something like that. And it just talks about this guy's expeditions in Borneo and find pythons and animals and tribes and all that kind of stuff. So
nice.
And then maybe every once in a while I'll read like, I think if I was like reading, what's the book called? Choose Your Enemies Wisely by Patrick Bet-David. I've been reading that one too.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty good. It's kind of like type books and stuff, kind of stuff. So
yeah. So what are 3 snake books you could recommend? Like what's your top 3?
I guess if I were to say, you know, what regarding pythons, I guess, yeah, I would say
anything snake related. Like what's a good read? And you can't say More Complete Carpet Python because I already have that.
I can't say that. Okay.
You can throw it in there. It's all right.
I think the Blue Bible, if you will, the reproduction of boas and pythons. I think that some of the subspecies stuff and species stuff is kind of out of date, but the info in that book, as far as like if you want to breed pythons, is pretty amazing. I'm trying to think.
I gotta get that.
I was reading. What was the? It's called Australian Pythons. Keeping and breeding Australian pythons in captivity. It's I think Mike Swan is the one that put it out. It's got a rough scale on the cover, but it goes through every species of python, and each chapter is written by a different person, and it sort of gives you all kind of data, everything you could possibly want to know about keeping and breeding pythons in captivity from Australia. to me, that's like, it checks every box. So that's a great book if you can find it. It's like $50, I think. And probably, I know I'm forgetting one. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like, I was listening to, there's a book called Venom Doc, which is, it talks about Brian Fry. We were listening to him on a podcast when we were out in Utah. So I was like, let me check that book out. That's a pretty interesting book. If you're into like, again, people's stories and stuff and getting bit by venomous snakes and bleeding out your eyeballs and your ears and stuff that, but yeah, cool snake book for sure.
All right. I'll have to check those out. How hard is it to get the Blue Bible?
You can find it on Amazon. Yeah, it's pretty. It's got the Woma pie. You know the one I'm talking about, right?
I have the Barker's book.
The Australian book.
Yeah,
it's this one. Hold on, let me get the cover. We were able to talk to the guy at NPR, but it's that one.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah, this one is black, but it's usually blue. That's why they call it the Blue Bible. But we talked to that guy, and that was amazing. And like I said, if you're into breeding pythons, that has so much information in it. Definitely.
When did you guys have him on?
I think it was the end of last year. Unfortunately, he just passed away. So I'm so glad that we were able to talk to him.
I remember you guys talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Richard Ross. Yeah. If you haven't listened to that episode, you definitely should check that out. He talks about like bringing ring pythons back because he was a doctor. And when he started messing around with ring pythons, he brought them back on the plane. He just had them in his pockets or something. It's like it was a different time in the 60s and 70s and stuff. But like figuring out how to breed, I think it was white lip pythons was just like the lights went out accidentally. And then that's how they figured out how to cool the snakes down.
Oh,
like
my
just
God.
You know what I mean? It's just like those little tidbits of information is just really cool, especially when you're into history and stuff like that. So
yeah, if I haven't listened to that one, either way, I'm gonna listen to it again.
Yeah. There's one. If you're into history, The Dragon Traders. That's a cool book.
Okay.
That's pretty much the history of the hobby. That's a really cool book. Yeah. That's definitely an interesting, really cool book.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn as much as I can because I mean the hobby has changed so much since I walked away from it.
Yeah.
Like 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 8 years ago it was a whole different thing. It was it was fauna classifieds and king snake and keep your snake at whatever 90 to 95 and it was a whole different and under tank heat mostly and it was just totally different. And then I came back and I'm like, wait a minute, people keep retics at 88 degrees and they, carpet pythons in like the mid 80s. What are you talking about?
Yeah, what's wrong with you guys?
And it's funny because then I look back and I remember I had a 3 foot by 3 foot by 18 inch, or it was 3 feet long, 18 deep, and 3 foot tall glass like aquarium thing with vents on it. And I kept a jungle carpet in there, and he had under tank heat that he literally was never on. He never once, and he never touched the bottom. Like I put sticks in there for him, and he was always just up in the sticks. And I'm like, I don't know how he's not dead. There
you go.
He should be dead.
According to the care sheet, he should be dead.
Yeah. He needs to get on that hot spot.
Yeah. What's he doing?
Yeah. This guy's lost his mind.
Right.
All right. Well, and so obviously nobody's that's going to listen to this is not going to know where to find you. But if people don't want to, or if they want to buy snakes from you that you aren't selling, it's EB Morelia, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And NPR and carpets and coffee and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's so, yeah. Look them up. You'll find us.
hell yeah. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate
yeah,
you
man.
coming on.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Anytime.
sir.